Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series here for Challenger in Europe, as Liquid keeps their hopes alive for the clean sweep once again here in Season 3. I thought, like you guys, Mana was going to be done for, but he was able to make that recovery. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I even spoke a little bit with Mana as well in the break. He said, congratulations, man. I was like, I thought you were done. And he's like, me too. He's like, after game number 2, he said, my head fell on the desk. I was just sitting there for 1 minute in disbelief. He's like, I just wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
He's like, and it was all going wrong. And I think even the way, sometimes you chat with someone and you can kind of feel their emotions. I think he just couldn't really believe what just happened. That's such a big series for him. It's such a big win.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, not just is Premier or getting to Premier something that is very, very important to these players, but getting over the hurdle of Challenger. There's a lot on the line there. And we saw that for Happy, who was a WCS mainstay, and now in the past 2 seasons, really having hard times. Hopefully Happy gets back up to peak performances come 2016, because for now, to be honest, his WCS road has come to an end for 2015.
Yep. Maybe when we have Legacy of the Void, Happy will be back in full force. Maybe he flies around with a bunch of those Liberators.
Oh, he'll love those.
a little bit of a cyclone here and there. You know, Mac is definitely looking very fierce in Legacy. So definitely, if you're a Happy fan, there's nothing to be too worried about just yet. But it is definitely a shame. I just said definitely 6 times.
It's fine.
I was distracted by some of the chat here. But we'll see more of Happy. You know, he's been around, like Todd said, forever. He's a dinosaur. Even when he's still a little young compared to us. But that's because he was so talented in Warcraft 3. He was 15, and he was already winning everything.
I wish I could make that much money when I was 15. Any money would have been nice.
Yeah, I was about to say the same. When I was 15, I never made any money.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on to series number 3 now here of WCS Challenger Day 1, as we are going to have another Liquid player. And this time, oh boy, is it an important one for a lot of the non-Korean scene out of there. It will be Liquid Snoot going up against who I believe to be a young prodigy. This is like Snoot versus young Snoot. It's My Insanity's Serral, who had a phenomenal Season 1, Roddy. Season 2, though, didn't quite clinch it going through Challenger.
Nope, went up against Harstem again, correct, if I remember, because they went up against each other in Season 1, but of course there was a big difference between Season 1 and Season 2 when it comes to the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, and that's because the Swarmos were a lot stronger. The old Swarmos, you know, it's proven to be a better Swarmos than the newer one. The newer one can be used in certain scenarios, but the old one, there was pretty much never a bad moment for the old Swarmos. And so Serral winning Season 1, he's like, well, I'll go up against Harstem again in Season 2. But that was, well, that chose to be a wrong decision.
One important thing to note about this series that's actually coming up is that normally you would see Snoot in a position where he could just almost pick anybody he wants going into Challenger. But Season 2 didn't go quite exactly as he had planned, so he was a little bit down the run. So as much as Snoot probably feels very comfortable in Zerg versus Zerg here, going up against someone like Serral, not exactly his prime pick, because as I said, Serral, he's a young guy. He's made his name in WCS in Season 1 when he did so well. Now here in Season 3, he's a player to be feared for sure, and I'm sure this is going to be a great series.
Yeah, Snoot is always interesting in ZVZ, and of course we always go down to back to the fact that Snoot has a lot of practice in general when it comes to Zerg versus Zerg, because the second best player from Norway is Starga, and they've ran into each other close to 50 times by now in official matches. So Snoot knows that if he wants to go somewhere, or at least wants to win those national lands as well, he needs good ZVZ, and Targa is very good. So Snoot's ZVZ has always been quite solid, but I'm still surprised to see him go for Serral, man, because Serral is a very dangerous player. We saw that great run that he had in Premier League Season 1. I'm interested in this series as well. Snoot is the favorite, but I wouldn't put all my money on it, that's for sure.
No, I think that this could definitely go either way in the end. Let's get into it. Game number 1 here of this best of 5 as we load up onto Iron Fortress for our first map. And spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner, it will be our red Zerg representing Team Liquid. It is Snoot. And up to the top left-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg representing My Insanity. It will be Serral.
And when it comes to players that are looking for a chance to redeem themselves, I think it goes for both of them. Yes, Serral didn't even make it to Premier League, and Snoot did, But Snoot didn't have the Season 2 performance that he was looking for. Nowhere near close. To put things in perspective, if he would have had the same performance in Season 1 as he had in Season 2, he would be a very serious contender for BlizzCon right now when it comes to WCS points. But Snoot missed out on a ridiculous amount of WCS points when he bombed out in the round of 32, which was very surprising. Opened up his series against Hydra, took game number 1, I believe, and it all looked good. Ended up losing that series, was a little bit upset. Plays his lower bracket match against Kalazur and loses 0-2, and that was just an oh my god moment in the foreign scene. It's like, whoa, okay, I get that just happened. That means Snoot is not gonna go to BlizzCon. That's kind of how it looked. Then Snoot went to Into Extreme Masters Shenzhen, had a great run through the European qualifier, and we all like, well, yeah, we know that he's capable of that. But in Shenzhen, he ended up winning a group with Rain and Classic. So made it to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, in the quarterfinals, wasn't able to top TY, but still get it, a nice amount of points, which still leaves the door a tiny bit open.
Definitely, definitely. The glimmer of hope is there, Roddy. That's for sure for Snoot. Because think about it. Snoot is very, very capable of doing the same as Little Bo from Season 2.
Absolutely.
Very capable of that kind of play. You make it to a final, that's bagging yourself 1,000 points. You do well in that final, and Snoot, I don't think anybody has ever really put it past him or out of the realms of possibility that could be a potential for him if he has a good run in WCS. So still, Snoot is looking for the grand goal, the grand prize at the end of the tunnel.
I'm not going to lie, James. When I was in the start of the year, we're getting ready for WCS 2015, and I look at the player pool that we will most likely be working with throughout all 3 seasons. You look at the Koreans there. And I said to myself, I think Snoot is going to win a WCS season this year. I really thought so. I did predict Hydra to win the first season. He didn't. He won the second one. But it kind of just felt like if I give Snoot 3 seasons against these players, of course, you know, Polt, very scary, Hydra, very scary, and then you've got Bunny and a bunch of others. You know that people are going to improve as well. But I genuinely believe that Snoot was capable of winning a WCS season. And so far, you know, Season 1, you could say, well, losing against Bunny in the quarterfinals, also not a fantastic run for Snoot. Something like that could happen. But Season 2, you know, that was a complete disaster. So it really has to happen for him in Season 3. And I think a lot of people do still believe in Snoot.
Yeah, the end of it all is that this Challenger Series here for Snoot is potentially the gateway to much greater things for him because everyone expects him to do well. Likewise, on the other side of things, Serral, you know, he has proven himself in Season 1 in going into this Zerg versus Zerg. Could be a bit difficult going up against one of the best non-Koreans on the planet right now, but Serral has all the hallmarks. He's so young, he has so much room for potential and so much room to grow as a player in the upcoming years. I think the sky's the limits for him as well.
Yep, so as you guys can tell, obviously, by our little pre-game chat over here, things are exciting over here. I think it's going to be close, it's going to be hard to call, and there is a lot on the line. We're taking a look at the build orders for now as game number 1 of this cool best of 5 is well on its way. And so far, it's a mirror image, pretty much. I feel that Snoot had a small edge when it came to just having a couple drones a few times a little bit earlier. But other than that, everything has been identical on either side of the map.
Yeah, pretty much. Serral getting a few swell of Zerglings now to head on across and put some pressure on, but for the most part, he's getting his gases back home. He's getting his drones back home as well, as these 2 Banelings having morphed in at the front. If they were able to get a good connection, that'd be great, but great focus fire there from Snoot. Will to start that off. Trades 2 Banelings for nothing, and then also gaps himself a lot of those Zerglings that are coming in to try and do some damage.
This is just great. These are all small trades, but small trades do really matter in ZVZ. Of course, Snoot's gas was a little bit later, which means that he had slightly more drones to work with. Serral had quicker Zergling speed, quicker access to maybe some potential play, and got absolutely nothing done for it. And over the past 2 or 3 minutes in the game, Snoot has been mining more than Serral. It hasn't been crazy amounts, but he's been slightly outmining him, which allows him now to go up to 3 bases a little bit quicker and have a couple Zerglings out on the map for a little bit of map presence. So the early game skirmish definitely in favor of Snoot. Maybe because of better build order, but also just because of that small defense that he just made over there, which he just lost the absolute bare minimum.
And with Serral really delaying his layer, getting this Roach Warren at this particular timing, this is a big, big commitment here for Serral. Yeah. He has to do something with these 11 Roaches and do something quick because Snoot eventually will take him. Oh, perfect Baneling placement on the ramp. Out of vision there because an Overlord was pushed away by these Queens. Brilliant stuff.
I do like this, what we see over here by Serral. Serral obviously going to be very aggressive, and this is pretty much a do-or-die attack for him in game number 1. Snoot is going to spot it now. Snoot is probably like, oh my god, that's a lot of roaches. He throws down the infestation pit, and I think that's something I wouldn't do, and that's why he cancels it immediately. I think that's very smart over there next to the roach farm, because this is not a game where infestors will ever have an impact on it. This is like, no, Snoot, you need all the roaches you can get right here, right now. Get some spine crawlers, get whatever you can, and just survive. If you survive, you will most likely be in a very good position.
Yeah.
He doesn't know this, but we know that his opponent doesn't even have layer tag yet. So all that Snoot needs to do is hold.
Yeah, exactly. If he is able to hold against this, then... Oh, he's actually going to send the Zerglings around. Is he going for a full counterattack? That's nigh on crazy, but... Well, let's see how as well is going to deal with this. The Banelings are being saved at the back just in case the Lings are to come around. The Lings are fully gone for a counterattack with Roaches and Banelings just crashing on forwards at the front.
Yeah, that may be a questionable call. Then again, it would have been hard for those Zerglings to really do a whole lot because there are so many Banelings over here. But Serral's, oh my god, look at the Banelings of Serral. They're just blowing up on all those Roaches. The Roaches from Snoot were so clumped up. Snoot could have done that a little bit better. Of course, the Zerglings are absolutely wrecking a lot on the other side of the map. Man, game number 1, already crazy.
Already fiery, man. You're totally right. These Lings are still doing quite a lot of damage towards the main base. The naked mineral line is now exposed there in the main as well. Drone's been pulled off the line for Snoot. He's losing quite a lot of them, but he'll eventually clean up these roaches. And this counterattack might be a complete saving grace after all of that.
Yeah, that was perhaps very smart, because there were just too many Banelings near those roaches of Serral for the Zerglings of Snoot to really have an impact. So Snoot going for a counterattack, cross-map Iron Fortress while you're being all in. That is a sick call, but it was good enough. I'm a little bit surprised that Serral decides to leave there, as he was up 2 workers. Of course, he's down a base and he's down
the layer.
Yeah. And that is huge, I understand. But we have seen bigger comebacks than that.
We have. You are correct. We have. Snoot, though, in the end, just having the presence of mind to go for something that wild and just understand the matchup that well. He's like, well, okay, if you are putting all of your gas into this kind of assault, obviously, you can't have a layer behind this. So if I just go for the counterattack and do equal damage, job's a good one.
I really like the call immediately. That's just great crisis management. That's a word we already mentioned earlier today, but it really comes down to some moments. No matter how much you play StarCraft, there are always new crazy scenarios where you just within a split second you have to decide what is the correct call here. And Snoot cancels the infestation pit. Just perfect call, because this is not a game where you need an infestation pit. Cancels it, and then he goes for the counterattack, which is like, you don't really have a whole lot at home. But it was just smart, because there were too many Banelings around those roaches. Like, what is Snoot going to do? You can't really micro, like, 10, 12, 14 Zerglings one by one trying to avoid detonations. That just takes too much effort, and by then you're going to slip on other things. So Snoot just goes for the counterattack, which is a lot easier. The only thing he could have done better is maybe split his roaches a little bit, because all the Banelings from Serral blew up on like 4 or 5 roaches of Snoot. But in the end, the counter attack, this was just good enough, man. It was all he needed.
Really impressive stuff to make that kind of call there in a high octane match, especially in Zerg versus Zerg, when everything is so fast and can be crazy. But game number 2 is going to be on Dash and Terminal here between them. So another wild map.
I'm loving these best of 5s, because I don't think I've casted a single ZVZ on Dash and Terminal just yet.
I don't think I have either. I haven't had much opportunity to, admittedly, but still, I don't think I have. So, awesome stuff. Let's get into it. Game number 2, ladies and gentlemen. At the moment, we have Snoot leading 1-0 here in this best of 5, and looking to continue on Liquid's path here through Challenger. So we have.
I'm going to put you here in front of a very difficult question. Who do you think is going to have more people in Premier League? The France nation, the entire nation of France.
The entire nation of France.
Or Team Liquid.
Or Team Liquid. I think Team Liquid.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think Team Liquid.
You got more faith in Team Liquid than the Frenchies?
Yes, because I've had to deal with Todd for the past couple of years. But no, I do think Team Liquid, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, they looked really good last season. And this season going forwards as well, I think they will pull it out again.
All right.
Yourself? Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I think the Frenchies definitely have a couple of people that are favored in this series, but it's going to be hard. Well, you know, I'm a little bit worried for a next series, you know, for my fellow country buddy, Red. Of course, representing Team Liquid, so I think he has a very tough series ahead of him against Hero Marine, but I am excited to see it. Either way, James, go ahead and introduce the players, since I just totally interrupted you.
That is totally fine. Spawning up to the north, it is our Blue Zerg. Representing my Insanity, it is Serral. And to the right-hand side of this map here, one up in this best of 5, it is our red Zerg. He's undoubtedly one of the best non-Koreans in the world. It is Liquid Snoot.
I wonder how many games both these players have played on this map as well when it comes to ZVZ. Because I can tell you, James, even when you have this map upvoted on ladder or just not downvoted, so to speak, even when you play with non-vetoes, when you don't veto this one, you still play it very, very rarely. And that's just because so many other players out there veto it that, you know, it's supposed to be, if you don't veto anything, 1 out of 7 games is supposed to be on Dash and Terminal. Well, I feel that I have like 1 out of 15, maybe 1 out of 20 games on Dash Terminal, even when I've never vetoed it. And all of the games, they always play out in such a unique manner that even when you play this map 2, 3, or 4 times, it's very hard to say what is the correct way to play in it. Now, I must say, I think when it comes to Protoss and Terran, this matchup becomes very crazy, or when it comes to ZVP, because there's just so many crazy things you can do. ZVZ could perhaps still be a little bit straightforward. Maybe Dash Terminal is not as wild in ZVZ as it is in some of the other matchups.
The one thing that really stands out to me for Zerg versus Zerg and Dash and Terminal is that because the bases are so close by air, the Overlords can get over there really, really quickly. So even if it was a spawning pool first at a usual time, you'd still probably be able to get in there and check if the gases have been taken. So in Zerg versus Zerg, that's of huge importance, and you pretty much get it for free on this map, that information.
Yeah, which also limits some of the crazy things you can probably do as a Zerg early game. But I'm very interested to see where both players will take it in the mid game. Sarah, once again, is going to have slightly quicker Zergling speed than Snoot. That is the same scenario as we had on Iron Fortress. Back then, he wasn't able to do really anything with his first 8 to 10 or maybe 12 Zerglings it was, and the 2 Banelings that he morphed. Because Snoot just kept his head calm, sniped those Banelings with his Queens, and then had 1 or 2 good connections with his Banelings against the Zerglings of Saro, as the first Baneling nest is going down, and Snoot has spotted it already, correct?
Yeah. Yes, he has. And unfortunately for Cyril on the other side, he actually moved his Overlord in such a direction that won't catch the Baneling nest going down there either. And Snoot is limiting the vision by having this Queen troll all the way around, so he'll miss a Lava Inject for a little bit longer, but he's getting himself an Overlord for this. This is a lovely move.
Yeah, and it's very early on in the game as well. It's super unpleasant to lose Overlords this quickly. You know, if you want to keep Overlords around because you want to see, you know, how many Zerglings is my opponent making or how many drones are mining, that's very useful. But you don't want to lose an Overlord that quickly.
Cyril looking to put on the pressure once again. Similar to how we saw game number 1 out. From him, it was more him that was actually being the aggressor, looking to bring the fight here to a player such as the caliber of Snoot, who is... I mean, Cyril is the challenger in this game. Here come the Banelings morphing in now, not quite having vision of this just yet, but he saw so many Lings powering across now, he has to know defensive setup is important.
Okay, he's going to find it here. The Queen was just peeking forward a little bit, wondering what he would run into. There are a couple of Banelings over here. 1 Baneling will get picked up by just 2. No, well, what's happening over here?
Ooh, okay, well, at the same time, he actually he's spread those units very, very well, did Snoot, and I'm able to focus down the Banelings quite considerably to the point where these Zerglings really didn't do a huge amount just yet. They need to find some damage in the main.
There's still 1 more Baneling alive for Snoot as well, and that 1 Baneling really complicates things for Cyril a little bit. Cyril needs to do more work than he's done so far. He has 16 additional Lings on the way. I'm just not sure if that's going to be enough. The Queen setup that Snoot had going for himself is so solid. There's a lot of energy on these Queens as well. Snoot has so far taken absolute minimum damage, and he's up 13 workers.
Wow. Really, really good hold by him. Fantastic stuff. Did he even lose a single Queen? Look at the resources lost. Triple the amount here for Cyril at the moment. And unless this does a good chunk more damage, he's up the creek without having a paddle.
Okay.
It's the best way to say it.
That's beautiful, James. I've just imagined him sitting, you know, off the creek without a paddle. And
a little boat.
It's a little terrifying. Poor little Cyril, man. Like, help him. Where's Baywatch when you need him?
Well, going to have to run on back now, and Cyril needs to go to plan B somehow, which is all the gas geysers, layer morphing in, and hoping for the best from there.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these moments where you're going to try to drag this game out. You're going to try to maybe be a little greedy and try to squeeze out as many drones as possible to even things up economically. He already has the layer on the way. Snoot hasn't started this layer yet. Now, that's interesting. because now I get the idea that maybe Cyril wants to go up to Mutalisk because he's mining so much gas as well, and he doesn't have a Roach one yet. I think if Snoot knows about this, he will just immediately produce a ridiculous amount of Zerglings and Banelings, or mostly Zerglings, just to keep Cyril on his side of the map and also force him to use some of the larva into Zerglings maybe. Because let's not forget that what goes for ZVP also goes for ZVZ here is that Zerglings can just run circles, and this could be extremely frustrating. Snoot is going to have more larva to work with as well, because he has a much quicker third base.
And I think Snoot's playing this so smartly, because he has actually got 5 queens out right now, which is not only spreading creep down the path where, you know, it's most likely to need the defense whilst these Lurglings wrap around, but even if Cyril's backup plan is to go to Spire, having 5 queens out to then start producing them extra, one great way to counter Spire play is having a Nidus Swarm eventually and then using queens to just drag on over the other side.
Yeah, that's absolute point. I feel like he wasn't aware of it yet. Snoot hasn't scouted it. And
but he's starting more queens, man.
Yeah, okay, so now maybe he's put it together, because also he hasn't seen any roaches yet, and he sees, like, most of the time when Zerg players are extremely keen on running on your side of the map with Zerglings without really doing anything, then those Zerglings only have one job, and that's keeping you there or forcing you to worry about the links. Well, the real threat is often the Mutalisk, and it seems like Snoot has just picked up on this without even seeing the Spy, without even seeing the amount of gas that Cyril is mining. I do not think that the Roach attack is going to be able to do a whole lot for Snoot, because I think the Spire will be done by then, the first Mutalisk will be out. But like you mentioned, a Nidus follow-up, that could be very scary. Or if Snoot is just able to create the ultimate creep highway for himself, because he has so many queens. And this is not... The rush distance that these queens have to cover is not that long.
I mean, he gets it in the end. He started his infestation pit pretty quickly. Pathogen Glance is on the way. He still hasn't seen the Spire, but actually, no, he has seen the Spire completely. So he knows exactly what he's playing against now. A few Banelings tried to connect into the main here, but he's going to have 12 queens very soon. And the base that he already had at the beginning, it's a fantastic start. And he's still keeping these Mutalisks on the other side of the map, Roddy.
It's really funny. I was like, how does he see the Spire? That doesn't make any sense. But he has one Changeling hiding behind the layer. That's kind of cute. These Banelings will get picked up immediately. Like, we kind of thought that the Roaches and the Banes, it was kind of too late for them. But it doesn't change the fact that Snoot is still in a good position. He's still up in workers. Had his 3 bases up and running a lot quicker than than Cyril had. And there are a lot of things for Cyril to worry about. He has to worry about Nidus networks. We see them being used so frequently, whether it's against Mech or against Mutalisk. And he has to worry about queens marching across the map as well and forcing him to take a fight he doesn't want. And then, of course, he also has to always worry about the potential infestor popping and letting a fungal grow. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a really complicated scenario to be playing Mutalisk right now.
The read that he has on the game flow here for Snoot is brilliant. I mean, again, having the base of those queens, having the extra production going after not really seeing much of a gas commitment at the front, and then eventually getting confirmation that the Changeling, with the Changeling, that this was going to occur. And now he is going to run away with this unless Cyril finds some way to do damage with these mutas, but very, very difficult.
Yeah, I just don't see what is the right play right now with the Mutalisk, other than just flying around a little bit and trying to pick off an Overlord. If he commits too much, he just makes it way too easy for Snoot to be like, all right, well, your Mutas are dead, now I'm just truly going to run across the map, and I have more stuff than you because I've been working on this stuff for a lot longer than you, and that stuff being Roaches, perhaps a Hydralisk later on, but for now this Roaches. Get some Mutalisk there for free. That's really nice. Like, if Snoot goes all out on Roach production now, I think it's going to be so hard for Cyril to stabilize.
Very, very difficult. I mean, Roaches, Hydralisks, anything he wants at this point. Yeah, there's a slight dip in the supply for him, but he is banking up. There come the Roaches now. Freeing up more supply here for just that extra little bit of anti-air, but he has plenty to deal with anything that we're seeing Cyril throw at him.
And let's not forget about all these queens that are just gathering up a ridiculous amount of energy. Queens are not useless in Roach versus Roach fights. They have a little bit of damage output, but those transfusions, if you just transfuse your front line of the Roaches that are fighting a couple times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, you basically buy yourself so many additional Roaches. And good Fungo there as well, gets 4 out of the 8 Mutalisk, I believe.
Yeah, did pretty well. Did pretty well for himself. We're actually having another little flock going to fly on into the main base, but they see the extent of which they are, unfortunately, really up against it. You can't even kill an Overlord. It's just transfusing the Overlord. Brilliant stuff.
You know, it's really funny as well, because if you think about it, the early game that Cyril went for, a lot of Zerglings and Banelings, that's supposed to be pretty good against a greedy player. Well, Snoot wasn't super greedy, but there's no ramp over here. There was no Sim City. Snoot just defended with ease with just a bunch of queens sniping banelings and having a couple zerglings and bailing himself. Despite making 12 more drones, he didn't really struggle at all, didn't break a sweat in his early game defense.
Really wanted to get the active creep tumors there and prioritize those, but unfortunately he didn't manage to catch this one at the left-hand side. He really wants that, slow down this push, but now is the war march here for Snoot. He knows that he's in a confident position. He's been in this confident position all game long, and even in the previous game his hold was strong. So Snoot here at the moment is looking at a 2-0 lead in this best of 5.
Yeah, and a very quick 2-0 lead as well, and that always feels good. It's just one of those moments where, you know, just wanted like, when did my best 5 start? Yeah, that's right. I'm already up 2-0, you know, and I feel like I've barely even revealed anything. It's been my opponent trying to make plays twice in a row. I've just defended, you know. I didn't even truly reveal the way I really like to approach the mid game in this matchup. Now, we do know, of course, that Snoot loves his 1-2 infester without petulant glance and just sit defensively. That's the way that he's been approaching ZVZ for a while, sometimes getting that slightly later gas than most Zerg players. But it's been very solid what Snoot has shown us so far. He waited a little bit too long here, I kind of felt, because he could have got a fight with 200 supply against 160. And now instead he's getting a fight against a maxed out Serral, but the fungals are so good.
Yeah, he caught a lot of Hydras and Roaches up towards the top. Likewise on the left flank as well here as he's coming in from 2 angles, really trading off against Serral, who doesn't have the economy compared to Snoot to actually go for these kinds of trades. Roaches and Hydras on the left take down some static defense, also pushing him with the right with the infested Terrans, looking to power down this location. Serral has very little left.
Serral is counterattacking on the other side of the map. That's why his supply is still low, so high, but it looks like he has no units at all because he has a bunch of roaches on the other side of the map. I think he's going to end up losing his evolution chamber perhaps over here as well, and that would just be super deadly. It's like 1 or 2 hits away. I think there's an infested marine shooting at it, but he knows as well that there was just no way to turn this one around anymore, as Snoot takes a very convincing 2-0 lead so far in this best of 5.
That was brilliant game sense by him. Brilliant game sense to have the foresight after, obviously, you know, having those queens to begin with as a base is so good for that kind of defense if you're able to focus down banelings like that. But then the transition onwards, he started extra queens before he'd seen the Spire because he knew how much was being invested at the front and the possible transition to come along.
Yeah, and I think it was really the Zergling selling it a little bit as well, because whenever your opponent is running around with links but he's not really doing anything and he's not showing anything else, he's like, well, then I kind of know what you're doing, you know, especially in ZVZ. And if you think about Dash Terminal, the rush distance by air is very short, so it could potentially be a great Mutalisk map, but the early game was just not where it was supposed to be for Serral. Made a huge investment when he was up to 24, 25 drones, Snoot went up to 35 drones, and he just didn't really do anything. Snoot lost 1 drone, you mentioned, in that entire defense, or maybe even 0.
Very little.
Yeah, he just lost Zerglings, and he kept all of his queens alive as well. Maybe this was just one of those moments where if you want to be aggressive against someone like Snoot, then just go all out. Then don't even think about transitioning anymore. Save up even more links or start producing links even earlier. Because like this half commitment, it just seems like Snoot is so good in dealing with that kind of stuff. You know, he reads it so well.
Yeah.
Perfect micro as well with sniping the banelings. And he, like I said, he didn't really break a sweat.
And this could be a launching pad for him to actually get himself into Premier League and kind of redeem where he was in Season 3. Obviously, Team Liquid is wanting to have the repeat success from Challenger Season 2. But
so do the Frenchies, James.
So do the Frenchies. So do the Frenchies. We need to keep a little tally somewhere. But in Season 3, Snoot can still keep his hopes alive if he's able to have a phenomenal performance. And after looking at his ZVP over in Shenzhen, after looking at his ZVZ here, his reads, his matchups could be getting very well-rounded.
I mean, he had a little bit of practice, of course, in Korea, and he's been practicing a lot of ZVT, getting ready for that big match he had against Innovation a couple of weeks ago. Against TY, he wasn't really able to show it, but I spoke with him about it, and he wasn't too sad about it. He just kind of felt like he played all right. He's like, TY was really good. He said, I had a really bad night of sleep as well. You know, it was hot in China, and he went to bed too early. He couldn't sleep well. So he said, I still feel my ZVT is solid, and I have nothing to worry about.
All right, well, let's get into it. Game number 3. This could be the final game of this series, at least, as we load up onto Cactus Valley. Down to the bottom left-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg. It is My Insanity Serral, a young ambitious nerd. Ambitious guy who is looking to make it to the heights of StarCraft. He did so well in Season 1.
We can call him a nerd, James. We're all proud to be nerds.
I've been proud to be a nerd since I was like 5 or 6 or 7. So
I've seen the pictures with your long hair.
Oh, that was a little bit later, but even before that, I was into dinosaurs and space, and those were the only 2 things.
Really?
And video games, yeah.
I was into little cars.
Little
When I
cars?
was young. You know, you could buy like one of those mats. It's like a printed mat with has a
yeah,
road
yeah.
on it, and then you could drive your little car over the fake road. That's little Roddy right there.
That's little Roddy with little cars.
On the left top side of Cactus Valley, of course, we're looking at the main base of another Team Liquid representative. He's in a great position to close out this series. It is Snoot. But let's not get too excited. We saw it in the previous series, James. 2-0 in a best of 5 is great, but it doesn't guarantee anything.
Oh, and look at this. Snoot already gets the favorable position in this game as well. So already that's giving him a little bit of an edge here as the favorite going into this series, and only now sees the drone going down to plant that. So he knows what the opener is from his opponent. It's a little bit more difficult to get in there and see if there's gas timings, but he might just go all the way with the information he has so far.
Yeah, it seems like he is. And he's going to get a great read on this opening. Of course, for Cero, it's been an interesting year as well. We've been talking a lot about how big this is for Snoot and how Season 2 was a disappointment for him. Of course, it was the same for Cero, because Cero was, together with Showtime, I would say, one of the Season 1 sensations,
yes.
right? Everyone was talking about it. Of course, Kane and Pig a little bit of all. Like, Season 1 was a wild season where we had a lot of players overperforming, maybe some players underperforming a little bit. But Kane in the quarterfinals was a great story. Showtime in the semifinals, correct? That was a great story. But Cero also had a very good run, and a lot of people were giving him a lot of props. And everyone was like, "Man, Cero is really a guy to watch." And it would definitely be a disappointment for him personally, and for his team perhaps as well, if he doesn't make it to Season 2 and Season 3 Premier League. Now losing to Snoot in Challenger, that's nothing to be ashamed of. That could happen to almost anyone. But it's still unfortunate, because in the 5 months from now on, the only thing that people will look at is like, yeah, Cero, but he only made it to Premier League once. Like, nobody's going to mention that he went up against Snoot, so it's...
Exactly. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, the one to look out for in the future. He is, by perfect definition, the true young blood talent here of Europe is Cero, and we will be seeing a lot of him. But at the moment, his life is on the line here, because Snoot is just playing out of his mind, actually, Zerg versus Zerg. This has been a really strong showing for him, and he gets both circlings before he can even get out. So, tough little start here for Cero after getting the less of an economical opener. Yeah,
but he stayed gasless for a while, and that's something we definitely have to talk about, because obviously he's mining slightly more minerals right now than Snoot is. Snoot got that extractor, Snoot's mining a little bit of gas, Cero is getting all of his drones on those mineral patches, and I kind of wonder if Snoot picks up on this. Is Snoot going to do something aggressive? Cactus Valley looks like a large map, and most of the time you're like, large map have large ramps or openings into the natural, right? Well, actually no, this is very small compared to some of the other maps that we're currently working with. It's very easy to get like a couple evolution chambers and a queen, and then you have a perfect wall off.
Yeah.
So I don't think Snoot is going to go too crazy about this, even if he is sure that Cero is staying gasless for a while. I think Snoot is just going to rather go up to 3 bases quickly than do something crazy aggressive on the other side of the map.
Yeah, we've seen him have these Baneling nests in the main base, just kind of taking precautionary measures more than anything. And with the 2 Banelings that did morph... okay, so I thought he was morphing into 2 Banelings there for a moment, but it seems that he's not. He's going for a layer pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, he cancelled speed. Cancelled speed on the last moment, so he goes up for a layer.
Wow.
A lot quicker, and that's kind of a cool play. That's something that Violet used to do a lot. I really felt that he was one of the first Zergs to do it pretty much all the time. And Snoot has also done it multiple times. Just probably figured this game out. It's like, well, if my opponent is gasless, I could get Zergling speed over here, but I don't think it's really going to do a whole lot for me. I do think this is going to be a roach game regardless, so I'm just going to ignore Zergling speed for now.
Yeah, and he snuck in a +1. Because cancelling that speed, he sneaks in the +1 on the evolution chamber very rapidly compared to kind of a normal transition.
Wow.
So this could be a big hit on timing, but...
Look at Cero, by the way. Cero is not making 9 defensive roaches over here. Cero has been very aggressive throughout this series. This is actually great for Cero, and I know it sounds silly, but Snoot just spots this hatchery, which gives Snoot the idea, like, everything is pretty standard over here. He's going up to 3 bases. This is going to be a long macro game, right? Well, Could still be, but for now, Sero has no intentions of saturating that base anytime soon. He's just going to be very aggressive. Does not have a Baneling Nest, so it's going to be the 9 roaches reinforced by a lot of speedlings.
This is the timing he needs to go for if he wants to keep himself alive at the moment, because if he doesn't kill in this timing, he's going to be behind the layer again.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even know fully about his opponent's position other than the third base. So he has to do something big here to Serral.
And I feel that Snoot didn't overdrone like crazy at all. Like, he's 6 workers ahead, but I feel that he should be in a position where he could be 6 workers ahead, because he started producing units just a little bit later. Good hold position there as well. Keeps the Zerglings at bay at first. There are roaches shooting at the roaches of Snoot now as well. Snoot needs to pull a few more drains. He needs to buy a little bit of time. He has a lot of roaches on the way, and if Snoot can get those roaches out, I think he's going to be in a great position, especially if +1 finishes up somewhere during all this.
Yeah, if he can actually just hold on, then he is going to be in an amazing spot. And he's hardly lost any workers, really. 8 have gone down, yes, but it's still 38 to 36. And he has speed as well as +1 in the back of this, and he didn't lose his third base during it either.
Just another great hold by Snoot. He's making it look easy. Yes, lost 10 drones in the process, but it's 3 bases. Well, you know, Serral does have his third base too, but it's +1 roaches with speed soon, or the speed already finished.
Speed finished.
Yeah, it's finished up against a Zerg that, you know, doesn't have lay yet, doesn't have +1 on the way, doesn't have speed.
Yeah, Serral right now has to scramble. He absolutely has to scramble to keep himself alive here in Challenger, because if he doesn't, with those Zerglings that were looking for the counter-attack, and good transfuses will save themselves 1 queen for a little bit of time, but all of the while, I mean, this is keeping Serral back, and we could just see tons of roaches power out here, and he'll have such an advantage for ages with this kind of production.
I really love how Snoot just split up those 2, or separated those 2 roaches from the pack, and he got that final hit off on that second queen as well. That's so nice. You know how great it feels to get 2 queens with 150, 160 energy. That's just like, I love it. I just got exactly what I was looking for. Snoot starting +2 now as well. Now, of course, Snoot has an advantage because of everything that happened, but it's also not game-ending advantage, because roach speed is great, but if you're not attacking, then eventually your opponent will get roach speed as well. The only advantage Snoot really has is in that upgrade, and that's pretty big, don't get me wrong. Like, upgrades are massive in roach vs. roach.
Yeah.
But Serral is not down and out yet. If anything, he's actually up in supply.
Good counter there, getting himself a few drones. Snoot is pretty much like, with the going back to droning, showing Serral a lot of respect as a player here. Of course, he will always try and apply the pressure, but if he really wanted to, or if he really thought his window was big enough, he would have continued producing roaches and just tried to go for the jugular there and then. But he sees plenty of defense, plenty of resistance, and is trying to capitalize on how many units were being made by having those drones back at home.
I think Snoot was a little bit surprised there by the amount of roaches he spotted. He wanted to just test the waters there a little bit. Like, I don't think this was the type of attack that Snoot ever thought he was going to win the game with, but just kind of wanted to see what was out there. And then suddenly he's like, whoa, that's a scary concave. I got to get the hell out of here as quick as possible, because that was a few more roaches than I anticipated on. Maybe could have clicked on one of these roaches, and that is the one moment where Snoot would have a tiny cheeky smile on his face, because whenever you click on your opponent and you know you're a full upgrade ahead, and you know that your second upgrade is more than halfway done as well, you're like, all right, so at least I got that going for myself.
And definitely. At the moment, Serral is looking for a lifeline. He needs to keep himself alive here in Challenger, otherwise he will once again not be in Premier for the 2nd season in a row, when a lot of people have touted him to be almost a genius at such a young age when it comes to StarCraft 2. But at the moment, Snoot, he's going up against likewise an equal genius in Snoot, and he is holding on so strongly here in Zerg vs. Zerg.
I wish I was young, James, because whenever you're young, you always get a little bit of extra hype because you're still young.
That's true. That's true.
If someone of Serral, if someone would have had the exact same results as Serral, but it would have been 26, people would be like, oh, that was a great run, but he's never going to do that again. But because Serral was so young, everyone's like, oh my god,
the potential!
It's the next Stefano. Innovation is shaking in his boots right now. It's
basically. Dude, it was my birthday yesterday, man, and I'm 27 now, and I'm feeling it. I'm getting old, I'm getting slow.
That was yesterday?
Yes.
Happy birthday, James.
Thank you,
happy
buddy.
birthday. Now everyone in Twitch is going to be happy birthday, James.
Oh, it was lovely yesterday. Everyone gave me so much support. It was nice. But anyway, back to these guys, because this is really where it's at. Snoot here is looking to put on the pressure down towards the third base and really trying to take advantage of his supply advantage as well as his upgrade advantage. Serral's trying to equalize that out. The units in production here might be able to keep him alive in all of this, but Snoot's being so aggressive into this position, trying to get onto those Hydras. That's one thing that Serral had to his advantage, but so many roaches.
Yeah, it's just so many roaches, and these roaches were really beefy as well. 2-1 roaches against 1-0. You definitely feel the difference. That Spine Crawler did ridiculous amounts of work, and I think that Serral did a really good job in trying to keep his Hydras alive for as long as possible. And it seems like he will actually stabilize for now. He really made the best out of that, and I felt that Snoot was making the correct plays as well, trying to swing around with a couple of roaches, trying to get that extra damage off on those Hydras. But in the end, Serral lives, but the upgrades, man. Upgrades.
You've always got to be so careful of that in Zerg versus Zerg because of reinforcement point, because like you know that your extra units are going to take so long to get over the other side of the map, whereas Serral's are just popping out right there and then in the middle of a fight. So Snoot's go-to plan now is get centrifugal hooks, get banelings, try and crush into those Hydras if you can, which is kind of the ultimate goal. But even if you crash into a lot of roaches at the front, it can still do a lot.
But what the great thing is about just playing this mass roach style, that's when there's an action-packed game with a lot of trading back and forth, and the armies stay, I wouldn't say small because we're looking at 160 supply right now, but you don't give the ultimate freedom to your opponent either to just hard counter this mass roach style, right? Like it's not like Serral had all the time in the world to get a bunch of infestors, get a couple spine crawlers here, maybe a little bit of a Sim City, set up the perfect concave. No, there's been a lot of stuff happening. So I just feel this has been great for Snoot all along. There's not going to be infestors. Fungal Grove won't fungal these banelings. And the upgrades, once again, it's going to be 2-2 by the time that they fight against 1-0. Like
exactly.
James,
it's brutal.
If when you have 2-2, you can just attack move. You can go to YouTube and watch, you know, watch crazy video, whatever the kids these days are into on YouTube. I've recently been watching these videos of those crazy climbers, you know, that climb the buildings. Like, oh my God. Makes me feel sick in my stomach. Anyway, and then you can come back to your game and you're like, cool, I just qualified for Premier League.
Oh, that was
Man,
nice.
2-2 roaches are amazing.
They're pretty good, especially against Hydralisks, as they're, you know, just shooting out little packets of damage very, very quickly, but the armor is negating that super fast, especially when the entire army is going to need to be on the move because those banelings are going to be leading the charge here. Snoot knows is in a good position to crash on through with his 2+2 armor finishing off. He doesn't care what those banelings hit. Powers on through into this line, and that is going to be a big, big supply advantage here for Snoot. 15 roaches are in production here for Serral, but I'm not even sure that's going to make a difference. He could also kill off the Roach Warren if he wanted to. He could do anything he likes in this concave that he's set up. He's pushing back the army on the right-hand side, killing off the reinforcements to the left, and that is going to be a clear victory in this fight here for Snoot.
It's a massacre for sure. 2-2 against 1-0. There's almost nothing you can do. Serral is counterattacking a little bit with less than a handful of roaches on the north side of the map. But it's just a little too late. 3 games in a row, Serral opened up to be the aggressor against the Zerg that is known for his strong defensive ZVZ style in general. Snoot, not a crazy player, not a player that rolls the dice a whole lot. Feels like almost like he just accidentally dents his roaches. I don't think it was on purpose, but it kind of looked like it. As GG is called, and Snoot will once again, for the 3rd time this year, qualify for WCS Premier League.
Yeah, well done to him to keep himself alive going through the World Championship Series. Because in the end, when it comes to a guy like Snoot, he is always looking for the victory, the ultimate victory, which is #1 in a tournament. He really isn't too satisfied with anything else. His appetite is insatiable here in the non-Korean scene. But commiserations for Serral. I definitely believe we will be seeing him in 2016.
Yeah.
He's got a long road to be walking still in his StarCraft 2 career.
No, of course, he's still a very young player, and you can still look back at 2015 as a very successful year. Obviously, it would be more awesome if he's more successful at the end of the year because that gives you more momentum going into the next one. If his season 1 was his season 3, then he would probably be extremely pumped for 2016. But I don't think you can beat yourself up too much when you go up against Snoot. Looking back at this series, he probably asked himself, why did he open up that aggressive all the time against someone like Snoot, who is maybe a little greedy, but he's not crazy greedy. And he's just a very defensive Zerg in general, especially when it comes to ZVZ. Snoot is one of the strongest defensive players out there. He loves it when people attack into him. So I kind of felt that Serral was playing into Snoot's strengths, and Snoot just did what Snoot does best. And he keeps that BlizzCon dream alive. I'm looking at the points. Obviously, he has a very long road ahead of him, but he needs a Lobo-ish run in Season 3.
Yes,
maybe even better than that, but there is still hope.
There is hope for Snoot yet. And Team Liquid makes it 2 for 2 so far here in Challenger Day number 1. After the break, ladies and gents, we are going to go to our 4th series of the night. Will Team Liquid make it 3 for 3? Join us after the break when we're going to have Liquid Reds going up against Hero Marine.